All right. Good morning, everybody. Hope that you have found many things to be grateful for. It is a beautiful day for that. And, I was thinking about something. When things are going really, really well for people, they seem to party a ton. But when things are not going so well, we seem to ponder and panic. And I think that's very interesting for every single one of us as we move through our lives, that we really come from a space that critical thinking is going on no matter what's going on, whether there's success or whether there's failures, whether we're down or whether we're up. The idea to be able to ponder, to think, to evaluate, to strategize, to be able to navigate and move your life is a critical component to the success of an extraordinary life. And look, in the end, what I ultimately want for every single one of you is to have an extraordinary life. I'm never concerned ever about the amount of money you earn. I'm never concerned about the number of deals you do. I'm never concerned about, the wealth that you may acquire only to the degree that you are. And then number two, what I'm most concerned about, and I believe that John Aubrey certainly emulates this, and that is that it's about who you become in the process. And one of the things I've appreciated about John over these many, many years, and now we're over a decade of knowing one another, and that is that watching his journey and watching his success and watching him focus on the fundamentals. So anyway, with that, let's just make sure you're unmuted here, Mr. Aubrey, which I'm going to unmute you right now. And there you are. So I hope that you are hearing us loud and clear. You there, John?
Yeah, I'm here. Thank you very much, George, for the kind introduction. This means a lot to me, the Everest family. I normally don't get nervous when speaking, but the Everest family means so much. And I'm going to promise you that after spending time with me, I'm going to bring you a ton of value, and you're going to feel like this was a Zig Ziglar event.
I love it, brother. Well, that's awesome. Well, hey, just get us up to speed just a little bit. Tell us just a little bit about who John Aubrey is, a little bit how long you've been in the business, and tell us just a little bit of your journey, because it's a pretty extraordinary one.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I've been in the industry since the summer of '04. I started in lending, and then in '08, why would you do it in '08? But in '08, I went into real estate as a real estate agent. And it was shortly after getting into real estate, about a year and a half, I was then introduced to George Morrison, the Everest family. So with that being said, I have a very important question for you, and that is, have anyone you know, or even yourself, ever asked the question or made the statement, but that is so unfair? Or have you ever said, the deck is stacked against me? So I'm gonna say absolutely sure. You're absolutely correct. And let me share with you where I'm coming from. I'm sure you can tell I'm speaking a little differently. When I've done phone calls prospecting, I've had people accuse me of being drunk because I was born with cerebral palsy. And because of that, I talk differently. And so that's the life I have grown up in. Of course, I'm going to share with you, I have some very important stories. The first one is when I figured out that life was different for me. And what that is as a young child, I was given a bicycle with training wheels, and my sister challenged me to a race. I was super excited because I thought I could win it. Long story short, there was a sharp curve in the course of the race, which is not good to do at a decent speed with training wheels. So I fell over, and because I had the lead, but not enough, my sister ran over my head. And I ran home with a whopping headache, crying to my mom. And because of that, my parents wanted to shield me from pain, and so they took away the bike. And I don't think my parents told me this, but the message I got is, John, because of your cerebral palsy, you will never ride a bike. And as long as that was what I believed, it was the absolute truth. Every once in a while, I'd hop on one of my siblings or one of my friends' bikes to give it a try and try it out for 15, 20 minutes, and I'd walk away. Well, they're right. I can't ride a bike. Well, when I was 13, I'd be at home all alone. All my friends rode their bikes to the public pool, and I hated being alone. So I said, that's it. This is enough. I'm going to ride a bike. And it took me a day and a half to teach myself how to do it. But I learned one of the most important lessons I will ever learn, which is it's all up here. It's all up here. As long as I told myself I have cerebral palsy, I'm not going to ride a bike, absolutely true. But once I said, I have a dream, I'm riding a bike, game over. Yeah, it took a day and a half, but game was over. It was done and it happened. So
I love that, John. What a great story.
Thank you. Thank you. And I wish I could say that I never needed to change my story again in my life. But when I'd been a part of the Everest family for about 5, 6 years, I was then I was then 36 and still single. And I had a horrible story that said, because you have cerebral palsy, you're not going to be able to get married. And at the Elevate event, I shared this story. In order to change that story, I had to have a spiritual experience. And I'm not talking religion, although it came while I was reading scriptures. There is a vast difference between religion and spiritual. We are all spiritual, and how we go through that experience is totally individual. So with that being said, I was reading the scriptures. Let me share with you what I read. There was an ancient American prophet that was feeling inadequate and was voicing that inadequacy in a prayer. And the revelation he received had a dramatic impact on me. Here's what he received. It says, and if men come unto me, and me so this is his God that is speaking. I will show unto them their weakness. How many of you all feel like you have weakness at times? Right? We all do.
Right? Ton of us.
So he says, I'll show unto them their weakness. And then the next line says, I give unto men weakness that they may be humble. And when I read that line, it totally shook me. And I'll share with you why in just a second. I want to finish what was reading. And then it says, and my grace is sufficient for all men to humble themselves before me. For if they humble themselves before me and have faith in me, then will I make weak things strong unto them. And so many people are familiar with that verse or scripture. Love that last line that says, I will make weak things strong unto them. And I'm not saying I don't love that line, because I do. The most powerful line is where it says, I give unto men weakness. And the reason why I say that is I is God, or our Father, or whoever it is to you, and he gave, which means it's a gift. So in my interpretation, when I thought God hated me, I was completely wrong. My cerebral palsy was a divine gift selected just for me.
Love that. Wow, that's powerful.
Yeah. And people ask me, well, how can you say that? That's a horrible thing. And that all comes down to what story are we putting in our head? Because as soon as I realized the truth and started sharing the truth with others, I got so many more friends. I mean, the divine creator knew what I wanted the most, and that started showing up in my life in abundance. And after sharing that message, it was only a year and a half later I got married.
I love that. Love that. Yeah, that's such a sweet experience. I was reading your bio. I can't even believe that 5 years has passed by since you just got married, which is incredible. And you have a beautiful wife and obviously a beautiful life, which is just a wonderful thing to see. So, John, let me ask you this then. Let me ask you some specifics. A lot of people will struggle with door knocking or making phone calls. give me some raw, real activity that you would encourage an agent to do. And let's talk about just in given days, what's the most doors you've knocked on in a given day in the game of real estate?
Oh my!
And what's the most contacts you've made in a given day?
So when I first joined the Evers family, George, I signed up to have George as my coach, and he challenged me to make 100 contacts a day. And I just about fell off my chair. I don't know if you remember that experience.
That's why I'm asking.
And so I asked George, I go, how about what? And I know it's going to be a stretch, but I can do 80 contacts a day. So I did that via phone call. I was making 80 contacts a day, 500 contacts a week. And that's
so I want to make sure everyone hears that. So 80 contacts a day, 500 contacts a week. And I find that is so powerful, where you have Obviously, you have investment properties today over this last decade. You have the way in which you've dedicated your life in regards to figuring this thing out called real estate. And the fact that when I look at people who have every capacity in the world, who continue to live in their fear, their depression, their sadness, their difficulty, their frustration, here you got you going out and either when you can, when it's appropriate to do so, to being able to go out and knock doors or make over 80 contacts a day. You realize there's only a few people that I know on this earth that consistently can do things like that. You're in a very elite group who dedicate themselves to having that many conversations, to winning the game of real estate. People think they're winning the game of real estate, John, and you know this, you've seen it firsthand, where they think they've made 5, 10 contacts, 15, 20 contacts in a day, and then they call it a day. For some reason, they thought they might have been part of the union and that there's only an 8-hour workday. And that's not to be critical of anybody, but the thing is that you and I have talked about this. Whether your gap, I've said this exactly to you, and you've been often an example. I've said whether your gap is this wide, or as wide as the room, or as wide as the Grand Canyon from where you are to where you want to be, you got to be. Any one of us can fill the gap. The question, is, John, is, are you willing to pay the price? And so few people seem to be hungry and thirsty enough that they would rather settle and be complacent in life than to pay the price to filling the gap of where they are to where they want to be. So I would ask every person listening that if you aren't inspired at this point by John Aubrey, man, that's got to be the strangest thing I've heard. Because the fact is that to look at the challenges you have and seeing the divine gifts that they are to you, and then the way in which you fostered your desire to becoming more and to making the calls and making the contacts is truly inspiring, as people continue to say on the chat box as to how you're approaching life, how you're approaching, as you mentioned, your story, and how you're approaching your activity makes it to where you are a successful, productive, and an amazing agent. And I think it is incredible, man. That's awesome. John, tell me this. What counsel would you give to an agent that seems to not be able to just get out of their own way, meaning that they're not prospecting consistently, they're not making contacts consistently, they're letting the government dictate their life, they're letting what the government says they can do dictate their life? For some reason, they've thought they can't pick up a phone, talk to their sphere, make contacts to people, talk to anybody. They're simply living in their fear. What would you say to that person? Well, and hey, look, let's just make sure we're clear. There's a group of people in Utah, there's a group of people in California, and
Right.
it's like I want to pull them out and say, come on, let's go.
And that is exactly where I wanted to get to. Thank you for all the compliments I'm seeing on the chat bar. It's very fantastic. But let's be honest, this is not about me. What I'm sharing with you is about the power of the human individual, which is within all of us. So if we are having a challenge, if we're saying this deck is stacked against me, or things just aren't fair, we gotta change our story. We have to change our story. George, I got a place I want to go to hit this powerfully, but George,
Okay.
you have several people that are inspiring to you, right?
Of course, you bet.
Tell me just the first one that comes to mind.
My wife, Jennifer.
And why is that?
I'm always impressed by the magnitude of joy and light that she continues to foster despite anything that goes around her in difficulty. And anyone who knows her story, any person who has their mother shoot themselves at age 5, a father who drinks himself to death, and frankly lived a life of great fear, tragedy, emotional strife, And then the fact that she continues to stay in the light is just unbelievably inspiring to me. It blows my mind as I think of her history as to how she continues to walk in light.
Awesome. Awesome. And here's the most powerful thing. You just mentioned who the person was and why they're inspiring. And the reason why every single time I ask anyone is because the person they knew had a challenge or an obstacle and chose to meet life in a very favorable manner. And so,
Yeah. What a great point.
and so anytime someone says the deck is stacked against me, it goes back to that verse I read where it says, I give unto men weakness that they may be humble. So if we will humble ourselves and go to our Creator and ask, how can this be powerful for me? Or how can I use this to serve and bless the lives of others? All of a sudden, the deck is now stacked correctly, and we will show up powerfully to serve others. And it will bless our life immensely.
Love that. Yeah, I'm just making notes myself. What a great series of questions, John. Thank you for teaching me. And I hope that everyone, what a golden nugget. Who are you inspired by? Why are you inspired by them? And I wrote down, because they chose to live their life in a very powerful and compelling, positive way, despite the tragedies, despite the setbacks, despite the things that are coming at them. And if there's ever a moment that we could ever define in history that we've never seen before, it's right in the midst of this virus, right? It's in the midst of this challenge, these strifes. And who are inspired by are the people who step forward despite the challenge, and we're inspired by those people. I guess I put this out here, John, and that is that I'm just going to challenge everybody to be someone who's inspiring. Be someone who perseveres past the tragedy and lives, as you just said. We're inspired by them because of the positive way in which they're living their life, or they're responding to the difficulty and the challenge. We're inspired by that. It's incredible.
Absolutely, absolutely. So the first key point is, what story are you telling yourself the correct story? Are you finding a way to use the challenge to show up in life, to serve others, and to create joy and happiness for others? The second thing I want to get to is, what kind of questions are you asking yourself? And when I learned how important this was, is, George, you're going to remember, we were at the gym at the sports mall, and I went to leg press far more weight than I should have.
Yes, I do remember this. You, Curtis, me, who else was there? So I think maybe Tim learned. I can't remember what group of us.
Robert Arnold, yeah. So
oh, that's right.
I blew out a disc in my back, and I became bedridden for quite a while, a couple weeks. And
hey, the good news is your chiropractor, who's one of our great real estate agents, is also on this call.
Yes, he is. Greg had
so don't hurt yourself on this call. The good news is we got the doctor in the house.
Very, very good care of me. So when that happened, I didn't have money in the bank. I knew I had bills I had to pay. And I asked myself, what can I do even though I have little to no mobility. And by asking that question, well, I can still call people to set appointments. And because it was hard to sit, it was hard to stand, I told myself I absolutely would call 30 people a day. And that led.
I remember that. You would roll around on a wheeled chair, and then you got a True Blue official wheelchair. But I remember as clear as day, as you still, no matter what, you were making stuff happen. We were not going to allow the setback to be the story for your excuse.
This goes back to the power of the human spirit. It's not about me. It's about what's inside of all of us. And I mean, I knew I had to do 30 calls a day. So I crawled from my front door to my car, drove to the office, and I didn't want to crawl into the office. So I'd call either Curtis Perry or Robert Arnold and say, hey, how about giving me a piggyback from my car to my chair at my desk? And they did, and then make 30 calls a day in the matter of not even a couple
But
weeks.
John, hold on, John, there's
even a couple weeks, I went from having almost no business to having 4 listings.
But John, here's my favorite thing. Dude, I know, and I'm more going to I'm giving you a hard time. But you broke your back and you're making 30 contacts. There's a pandemic where 99% of the people and probably 100% of the people listening to this call have no injury whatsoever, except psychologically they've chosen to believe that they cannot sell real estate in today's market because of the injury or the government or the pandemic. And for some reason, they've told themselves a different story. So I just hope that people are relating and connecting the dots. John, you broke your back. You have cerebral palsy, and yet you're still making the contacts. You're talking to the people. You're making a difference. When you broke your back, within the very day you break your back, you're making calls. We have a pandemic, and people somehow are on a constant fix of Netflix, Amazon Prime Video, and checking out. And the thing is that they're checking out because they're not willing to just lean into the storm, lean into the challenge, lean into the difficulty, and see what they're capable of during those times. And that's the beauty, man, is you're finding out who you are during all of this. And that's why I'm tough on you, because I know.
Comes down, I heard the question, are you a cow or are you a buffalo? And what that refers to is when it rains, cows, they run away from the rain, and because the rain travels with them, they're in the storm longer, where buffaloes, cows run away. And because they're running away,
buffalo walk to the storm, into the storm, right? Like you already said, Mayor, they run towards the roar.
Yes, absolutely. And I know there are people in life, there might be some on this chat, but probably not you, that are thinking, don't you know how painful this pandemic is? And so let's do something real quick.
And then just know you got about 2 minutes. Hey, wrap us up because we got 2 minutes.
Oh man, George, you're killing me. Okay. If you're hating this pandemic, find a time to scream about it. But we need to change our story. The last thing I want to share, I was talking with a good friend of mine, And he said, hey, John, this is going to go down as an unfun year. I said, what are you talking about? I'm having fun. Aren't you having fun? And he said, well, I'd have a lot more fun if I could go see a movie. I said, well, when's the last time you built a fort in your house? Or a tent in your house? What if you built a fort or a tent in your house and had a little opening so you could see the TV, and you and your partner or spouse sat down in the fort or your family and watched the movie? Would that be fun? So, oh my goodness. So it comes down to what story are you telling, and are you being resourceful? So I mean, with that kind of resource, if you do something like that with your partner, I'm willing to bet at the end of that, they're gonna look over you and say, man, this was a lot of fun. Do you want to participate in that anti-social distancing activity?
I love it. I love it. Brother, hey, just know how much I love you and how grateful I am for our journey. Thank you for your love, your passion, and your commitment to truly being a shining star.
Yeah.
I've seen you go through difficult moments. I've seen you go through some very scary moments. I've seen you go through some very sad moments. But also, you're one of those people that I know that I love the word that is consistently used in this chat, which is people recognizing that you're an inspiration. And that is because those who overcome and persevere, and to your point, change the story and act in the space of their dreams, their desires, their expectations. And man, what a beautiful statement. And that is that you believe that your challenges, your difficulties, your injuries, your cerebral palsy, you name it, is a divine gift. And what a different story. And I wrote down on my notes, as you all know, I say this consistently, and others have said it before me, and that is that life is happening for us, not to us. And that everything that's been going on, if we can repackage a better story of life happening for us, not to us, we sure seem to have a much more productive life and a much more joyful and happy life. So John, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
I have a real quick quote I want to read.
Okay, and then let's do our affirmations. Sounds good, do it.
So this is from Mary Williams, very powerful. I absolutely love it. Says, our fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, glorious, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine as children do. We were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It's not just in some of us, it is in everyone. And as we let our light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we're liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. And the reason I wanted to share this is because it tells us the absolute truth. Our challenges are to make us glorious so we can help others become glorious and learn of and see the relationship they deserve to have with their divine creator.
Love it, John. Thank you, brother. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And
Okay.
before you hang up this call, make sure that you read those chats over there, because there's a bunch of them that have commented as to your inspiration and their gratitude for your message today. So thank you so much.
Thank you for allowing me to add value to the Everest family.
All right, brother. Brother, thank you. Love you to death, and thank you for being an inspiration and continuing to be so. All right, here we go, guys. Some affirmations.